You would have seen the first two videos that I had brought out on Sri Oommen Chandy, and this is the third video in that series. In this video, I hope to cover the impact that he had in the disability sector. And this also gives an insight into the humanitarian part of Oommen Chandy. Oommen Chandy is, everyone knows about his concern for the poor, his concern for the common man, his concern for those who have a need of any kind, and he would go to any extent to get that done. I'll just talk about some of the main initiatives that happened during his time. The first was, he was the chairman of the planning board also in his capacity as chief minister. K.M. Chandrasekhar was a vice chairman. I was a member at that time. And for the first time in the history of any state in the country, we created a working group in the area of disabilities. And this working group had several decisions and recommendations that were made. And they all were combined together into what one called the State Initiative on Disabilities. The State Initiative on Disabilities also had another very unique factor, that it was to be implemented by 3 different departments: the Department of Social Justice, or the Ministry of Social Justice, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health. So these 3 departments were together to implement the recommendation of the State Initiative on Disabilities. And also, as part of the working group recommendations, for the first time in India, a disability census was done, where there was a door-to-door census done to find out the number of people who had disabilities and what kind of disabilities they were. And the findings of that were something which helped in terms of formulating policy after that. I talked earlier about the State Initiative on Disabilities. Some of the big programs on that was the cochlear implant program, which I briefly mentioned in my video on niche. But the cochlear implant program, the way it was structured, had such an impact that Kerala today has no waiting list in the disability sector. The second one which was done was, there was many of the reasons why there were disabilities among the children in Kerala was because the mother had rubella during the period when she was expecting. To stop that, the only way was to actually have a rubella vaccination campaign. And the rubella vaccination campaign was structured in a manner by which all the girls in class 9, 10, 11 and 12 were given rubella vaccinations. Similarly, the MMR vaccination for children, the rubella part of it was not compulsory to do. That was done. So that over a period of time, all the young girls would actually have had the rubella vaccination, which would prevent their children from having a disability if for some reason they got rubella during the period of pregnancy. That was number one. That was one of the big things which were there. There were several other recommendations. Some of it was implemented. So the cochlear implant program, the rubella vaccination program was another big initiative that was done. And one of the things which happened was the Kerala Social Security Mission, which was started earlier during the time of Srimati Teacher, which had 2 programs with it. That program, that mission was used for rolling out a series of programs in the area of care for various groups of people. And a major program he launched was for the government taking care of children who were orphaned due to either an accident or due to some other calamity that happened. And that program, I think, was called the Snehapurvam program. And it was one of its kind, was a very unique program. It came out of his own thoughts that were there. I remember when we were discussing the State Initiative of Disabilities, one day, he told me, look, there's so much we are trying to do in this area. But have we thought about the mother whose only prayer is that my child should die before I die? And I was actually stunned about it because I had not thought to that level. Because I had, and then I said, no, we haven't. And he said, every mother in Kerala who has a child with a severe disability prays that her child dies before she dies, because there is no other way that the child can be taken care of. Do we have something for that? And that is how we actually we got together some of the best experts in the country and created 9 models for assisted living in the state. And those 9 models are still available. Some of it has been implemented by individuals or groups, but it is high time that the government actually used NGOs and government supported the setting up of assisted living centers for adults with disability. I'm just telling here about the way he thought about things, the way he talked about the concerns that he had. On the disability area, again, I had mentioned earlier on the cochlear implant program, he said the entire expenses should be taken care of by the government. And his thing was that this is not something which should be looked at as a certain huge amount being spent on a child. It should be looked at something there is a need. The problem is the problem of society, not of the family alone, and that this should be done by the government.